I am very passionate about this. I get it. I love the adrenaline. You want someone who is a bona fide superstar. It's a little wrinkly and odd. The heroes. What do you want me to do? Rip it off? Like, I can't. And I will die on this hill. Hey everybody, I'm Luke Winstel. I work with ESPN+, and today I'll show you how to capture attention, inform your audience, and leave a good first impression on every sports broadcast. The first 2 minutes of any sports broadcast are some of the most important in your entire show. I start mine with what's called a broadcast open. It's usually about 90 seconds long, helps hook your audience, teach them what they need to know, and make them care about your show. These lead to longer retention rates, and it makes you look sharp as a producer. I'll show you how I structure mine and give you some tips on how to shorten that learning curve and develop a strong open. Here's a quick note for you before we get into the structure of these opens. Most of the broadcasts that I've worked on have ranged from the high school level to college, mid-major types of games on ESPN+. These tips are really intended for producers that are beginning or looking to kind of up their level right now on a mid to low level type of broadcast setting. Regardless, these elements and these tips are true all the way up the board. You can be creative, especially the larger budget that you have. So these are more of a structure for you to start with. And as you find your style as a producer, you build off of. But right now, the things that I recommend, the segments in the open, begin with a locator package. It helps you set the scene. I'll dive into each of these in a moment. Next up, we need an on-camera greeting from the commentators. We need a segment for that, so that's number 2. The third thing we need is highlighting heroes. Who are the characters? After that, we want to go into the part where we're giving context on the broadcast. We're making people care. We're driving the point home. And after that, we finish off the open with either a tease or a transition. Depends on if you're going to commercial break next or not. All right, now let's dive a little deeper. The locator package is your first impression. You want to set the scene. Similar to a book, when you're starting the beginning of a book, they're giving you notes about the setting of what things look like, what's the mood, what's the weather. You want to show some of that. You could do a pano, a shot across the stadium. You could show people coming into the gates. You could do a drone shot if you have the budget for that. Be creative on your scene setter and let people know what the environment is like so that they can begin to start to feel like that they are in it themselves, at least as much as they can be, given the fact that they're not actually there. Now, one other thing you can do in the locator package, this can run, I think a sweet spot's about 12 seconds. So to me, that means 3 shots, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 for sure. And one way you can get good shots is by doing preparation as a producer. If you know you're going to be on a campus, scout it out. Is there a cool statue near the facility that you can get some kind of a cinematic shot of? Is there something interesting, a pregame celebration? If you're doing Clemson sports, for example, maybe a tiger walk, or if you're a Georgia guy, a dog walk, a scene of the players walking into the stadium. What can you do to bank a shot and then put together a video package, whether you have replay software that allows you to do that, or you put in an Adobe Premiere and play that as an MP4 at the beginning of your show. Those first few shots get people into the mood and into the environment. Now, here's number 3. This depends on your budget, and I already mentioned a drone. Be flashy. If you can get drone shots, if you can get insider access that they're okay with you airing a clip of at the beginning of your broadcast while things are getting started, that will set you apart. That's preparation, that's talking to people, that's knowing your campus, knowing what you can get shots of. Be flashy. That's a great way to set yourself apart. Now after that, during the locator package, it's not just cinematic shots playing with music in the background. You can and you should add music to get things going at the start here. So you've got your first scene coming across, maybe it's a pano or a drone shot. Music comes up. As a producer, you're in your headset and you're telling the commentators, okay, here's your cue. 3, 2, 1, go. And your commentator will come in and say something to the tune of hello and welcome to this stadium and get everybody in the mood, just like you're used to at the beginning of any sports broadcast. Make sure that the lines that your commentator has written or what they're planning to say, if it's improv, are good. Because if you have a boring welcome, these are the two teams that are about to play, this will be some good action on a Thursday night, that doesn't sell your show. When you have an experienced commentator, or even someone who's not experienced, you can coach them up. You can say, hey, what cool things can we write? Can we get people sucked into it? For example, do you want to mention that it's senior day? Do you want to mention that, hey, these two teams are about to square off in the conference championship? Don't bury the lead. Lead with what's important and make sure your commentators are saying that in their script. Make sure it's well written, it flows well, they're timing their breath well. And for the commentators, usually you want them writing about 3 sentences. Hello and welcome, something maybe that acknowledges the two teams, something like, the Detroit Lions were inches away from the Super Bowl last year, and they're taking on the Chiefs, who are the defending champions. Sets up a storyline and gets you ready to move to your next segment. Your third sentence can be about the matchup or about another topic, or it can be a transition of, alongside James Madison, I'm Luke Winstel here with you in the broadcast booth. We welcome you in, that kind of deal. Because then that leads into the on-camera.
Macon, Georgia, we welcome you into our Ingles SoCon Game of the Week. The Western Carolina Catamounts in to take on the Mercer Bears. Hi, friends, and welcome in with Dean King.
The second element of a broadcast open is the on-camera greeting. Anyone that's worked on a broadcast that I've produced or a broadcast that I've had a say in knows that I am very passionate about this, and I will die on this hill. Commentators need to be on camera in the open. They should be on camera multiple times throughout a broadcast. I've been able to do this on the absolute lowest budget broadcasts. I can do a video on that. I can show you how to make that work, but know that this is a priority. And here's why. It's credibility. On a low to mid-budget broadcast, people probably do not know who your commentators are. They want to see them because it starts to build that bond of, hey, this person's going to be talking to me for 3 hours. I'd like to know what they look like. And you really can start to build and start to trust and start to see, oh, wow, they look professional because they followed the dress code, which we'll talk about. And it shows that they're in the setting. It's a live shot, which is what makes the TV news credible. It's what used to distinguish news from other outlets and make TV so interesting. So take that element from TV news of what made them special and apply it to your broadcast of, it's a live shot. You've got a reporter on site that's going to give this audience everything they need to know about this game. That's why, credibility. Now, with that, it's an introduction. It's alongside Tony Romo, I'm Luke Winstel here with you in the broadcast booth in Dallas, and we'll get into the conversation of things from there. When you look at these two teams, I like to address, for example, both teams and not ask a question of the color commentator, but more so drop it off to where it's a natural conversation. It feels like we have chemistry. One thing here, and I'll make this quick, dress code. You need to be minimum business casual if you're going to be on camera. So make sure your commentators know. Inform them before they show up. Give them days in advance to get their outfit together. Say, hey, just so you know, you'll be on camera multiple times, hopefully, in the broadcast, but definitely in the open. And tell them the minimum is business casual. Or if you want to hold yourself to a higher standard, which I do recommend, I would tell them, hey, bring a suit coat and a tie. Let's go professional. Or if they want to go professional but casual, don't take the coat off and wear a tie with just that undershirt that you would wear under a sports coat or under a suit. I don't like that look. It's a little wrinkly and odd. I would say keep the coat on, keep the shirt on, but take the tie off. You can negotiate with your commentators. You do need to talk about your brand, what kind of vibe and how you dress for that. Don't wear logos unless it's something like a Nike or a Nautica. Like, what do you want me to do? Rip it off? Like, I can't. So sports logos are really what I'm getting at here. And make sure that you're not wearing a color of either team, unless you're employed by the team, and that's a whole separate situation.
I'm Frank Malloy along with Phil Cox. Phil, these are two teams that are playing their best football right now.
Well, and that's just what these two coaches want to see. Obviously, the momentum into the fall, but you look at ETSU and a situation where they could make a playoff push, hoping they can continue the momentum today. But this is going to be an exciting game. Both teams coming off some fine team performances, but also some strong individual efforts as well.
Now let's talk about the heroes. At the beginning of any book that you might write or read, or any kind of story that you tell, one of the first things that you do is establish your characters. For example, if I'm covering the Colts and they're playing the Patriots back in the day, about 20 years ago, one of the players that I would highlight as a hero would be Peyton Manning. Now, how does the structuring of this segment work? You've got about 20 to 30 seconds per player. You want one player from each team to be highlighted as a hero. You do the away team hero highlight first, then you transition into the home team hero highlight. Now, what makes a player qualify? Well, maybe telling you Peyton Manning would be my pick is a bit of a hint. You want someone who is a bona fide superstar. You want someone who has maybe won a championship. They're a leader. They have something tangible, preferably. Maybe it's a soccer player. Let's say it's a soccer match. They've scored a hat trick the game before. So they've done something recently. Maybe there's a recent accolade, like a Conference Player of the Week award, or they were named an All-Pro. Those are the kinds of things to me that would make someone be in contention to be the hero pick for their team. Now, how is this decided? I would say as a producer, if it's a simple decision, I would bring anywhere between 1 to 3 names to the table. And then I would go talk to my commentators. I would say, hey, I'm thinking about naming this guy for a hero. Maybe my picks are like, let's take the Colts, for example. Maybe it's Marvin Harrison, Dwight Freeney, and Peyton Manning. I say, okay, these guys have all done something recently, or they fit the criteria that I just described. And I'd say, okay, guys, I'm really okay with either. I'm kind of leaning Peyton. How do you feel? And the commentators will say, oh, it's got to be Peyton. Or they'll make some kind of a case. And if they're good commentators, they'll make a very compelling case for why they journalistically or for whatever reasons believe that this player is the person we should talk about first. So after that negotiation, we say, okay, I say Peyton, you say Peyton. I'm going to prepare for Peyton Manning. So in the visuals that I'm putting together as a producer, I'm going to have, if I have the budget, have a cameraman down on the sideline that's getting me a shot, a solo shot, maybe on the shoulder, handheld, of Peyton Manning warming up or talking to a coach. And you can do this and you can bank it. So you have them go get shots earlier and then you save it and then you have them play during the broadcast. Or you can just have a live shot of Peyton Manning's walking around and you've got a camera guy following him and he's live for a few seconds and then he's done his job. You could also, if you don't have the budget for that, just have one of your cameramen, let's say you only have one camera and they're upstairs. You'd say, hey, on this cue, you're going to get me a shot of Peyton, and then you're just going to zoom out a little bit and just pan until, as we're transitioning, let's say it's Tom Brady, that's the other hero. They're playing the Patriots. Now zoom and then find me a shot of Tom Brady. It's not quite as nice, but it will do the job. So you can do this on any kind of budget. The goal is you want a solo shot on screen of that player. Take it a step further, I'll give you bonus points if you get a good lower third graphic on screen accompanying that solo shot. So let's have the player's name. You could have the number or the team logo on the side of it. This is totally creative and up to you. You can put where they're from. You can put what position they play. You could put a stat. You could put an accolade. Creative decisions. That's on you. So you've got that visually. Your commentators, you're going to have a play-by-play guy that's just been on camera say, well, let's say the Colts are the away team, so they'll go first. Well, the Colts are led by a man they call the Sheriff, Peyton Manning, who is an MVP candidate again this year. And then your color guy is going to have the job of moving the story forward. So we've established Peyton's a superstar. He's a well-known name, so you don't have to spend a ton of time introducing him, But your color guy needs to be able to have maybe a quote from a coach or something he observed or something that moves the story forward journalistically, not just reciting numbers and accolades. Maybe if you're on a small broadcast where no one knows, like let's take Division II baseball. People probably don't know your players, so you can get away with hey, he hit 300 last year and he's got 10 home runs already. This depends on what level of broadcast you're working on. So I'm trying to take you from low to high here. That's what your color guy is going to do. Let's say your play-by-play guy goes short and snappy, gives it off to the color guy. He goes 15 to 20 seconds. Now you're on to back to your play-by-play guy saying, well, he'll have a tough task today as Tom Brady, last year's Super Bowl champion, is waiting for him on the other side. And then your color guy is going to, again, move the story forward on Tom Brady and say, Bill Belichick told me this week that Tom Brady's the best player he's ever coached, bar none, and here's why. And it's something like that chops you on. Also to note, storylines. For example, I've got a picture of Messi. One thing that you have to hit, like let's say it's 2023, Messi's just come to the MLS. That's low-hanging fruit of, hey, Messi's in his first year in the MLS and he's already scored 4 goals in 3 games. Making up numbers, but you get the point. That's low-hanging fruit. You've got to hit the storyline because it helps you build that character. After that, we've mentioned the elements. For example, if you're highlighting Dominique Wilkins, he's the human highlight reel. One step you can do to take things a little further is Dominique Wilkins walking around the court pregame in a warm-up jacket is cool. I mean, great. It does the job. But what if, let's say situationally, he's just been in the NBA dunk contest, and this is the first game back from the All-Star break. You have Dominique Wilkins highlights just banked like crazy. So you say, you know what? We'll take that video and we'll take a highlight, and then as we're talking about the hero, the play-by-play commentator might lead you in and say, well, Dominique Wilkins, fresh off an appearance and a win in the NBA dunk contest, returns to the Atlanta Hawks where he hopes to lead them to the playoffs. And now you're showing that highlight, gives you some recency. You can also do that with game highlights of Amoria Smith just dropped 31, and as the commentators are talking about it, you're rolling a few of their highlights from the previous game. So get creative with your elements. You could also use pictures. That's one thing that I don't recommend, but sometimes photographs are that compelling that it's okay to use that in a broadcast open. I really wouldn't recommend it. It's very rare, like 1 in 1,000 times I would say yes to doing that. But just know it's something you can do. Like if the Muhammad Ali picture is available to you and you're doing a show about that, then yeah, that can go in your open. Pacing is important. This segment, for example, is not an example of pacing. I've gone about 8 minutes on this, but we've talked a lot of details and that's important. I like to take John Wooden used to say it a lot, be quick, don't hurry. You don't want your commentators to sound rushed because it gives a bad impression. It gets you off to a bad start. It seems like you weren't prepared, you weren't ready for the moment, you're not a big-time crew. And as you're overcoming these humps and these curves overall in the learning cycle, that's something that you might go through, but you want your commentators to be slow, calm, relaxed, but paced to where they're not rambling. You want to keep things tight of 20 seconds, 20 seconds, 20 seconds, or however much you've budgeted on your rundown within a margin of error to me of 10 seconds if you're good, especially if you're streaming. You don't have a hard cut out necessarily, but you want to be close.
Speaking of strong individual efforts for Mercer, our Georgia Power Spotlight is the young freshman quarterback, and that would be Carter Peavy. He had a huge game against Furman last week.
National Freshman of the Week honors for that young man. You see the numbers that he put up against a supposedly vaunted Furman defense and just giving the Paladins all types of problems through the air. He is a very smart quarterback. He can move with his feet as well. Just a freshman, but plays like an upperclassman.
Yeah, 406 yards. He threw for 2 touchdowns. He ran for 1 more. Speaking of running the football, That is what ETSU does best, and they do it with this man right here, Phil.
Boy, he went up against VMI and just gave the Keydets all types of headaches with his versatility. Just a very, very good running back. Obviously can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. A Georgia native, Frank, coming back home to play in his home state. #1 in gold and blue, one of the best running backs in the Southern Conference.
Quay Holmes is a good one.
We're at the point where you've introduced the characters, your commentators are introduced, you've shown me what the scene looks like, you're doing a good job. But you gotta make me care. Why do I care about this game? Why does this matter? If you're a journalist or if you're trained journalistically, you know that when you're writing an article, within the first 2 paragraphs, you have to get that nut graph, the why do we care part, to keep people engaged. And it's the same as we translate that concept to a visual live medium here. The question is, how do we do it? There's some games where I've just said, man, I don't know what this is, and I'm struggling, but eventually you find it. And if you can't find it, it means you haven't dug deep enough and haven't prepared enough yet, because there's always something that you can sell for why do we care in this context category. So sometimes as a producer, let's say that you're in conference play or there's a division race going on, you could build a graphic of the standings and then put it on screen and have your commentators say, well, you know, the Citadel is in 2nd place, and you see if they win today, they'll move up and be in 1st heading into the last game of conference play. Or if you're in a tournament, you could put a bracket graphic on screen and say, the winner of this will take on the San Francisco 49ers, who have just had the week off after winning their division. And you see how it sparks a conversation and says, you know, they'll be one step closer to a Super Bowl, which will be played this year in whatever city. You're selling people what's on the line. Now, sometimes not every game is that important. So how do you sell it? Is there a rivalry that you can talk about? Is there the type of situation where a key coach or a key transfer, we're talking collegiate sports, came from the other school and now they play for this school, and it's a bit of drama of it's Logan Ramirez's return to Macon, those kinds of things where maybe Logan's a star player and this was a big transfer that made news, something that stirred up a community. If you're in a smaller area for broadcasting, for example, a high school broadcast, that's something where building drama can really help. So what's on the line? Can you build some drama? Can you give me something unique about this game? Is it the first time these 2 programs have ever met? Is it the first time that this team has ever played in the state of Washington? Is it the first time a Canadian team has come to play high school football in the state of Alabama? What kind of storylines can you get at? There's broad context that you can give like that really draws people in. It's similar to a conversation of if you go home and your grandma says, you know, hey, you know, what game did you do? How'd it go? And you say, oh yeah, this team won and now they've won the division. It's that second thing of, oh yeah, you know, you come home and the game was fun and this player played well, but at the end of the day, you know, this was what was on the line. Or, you know, hey, at the end of the day, Georgia just beat Florida for the 5th straight time. This is really a big run and I haven't seen anything like that in a while. Those kinds of things will drive home your broadcast. You can always find some point of drama, some point of context, or some point of what is on the line. And you could even go with an opener, like, hey, this Memphis squad lost 9 starters a year ago. They look totally different, and we get our first look at this team after this. Because you can build from context where the play-by-play guy sets up the color guy to speak a little more on it, and then you move into the final bit. If you don't sell people here, this is crucial. That's why I've got the little Arthur gif here of that fist down. Or else, if you fail this, your retention rates on the broadcast are likely to not be as good. Because if you don't make people care, if you don't really suck people into your show, then next time you go to commercial break, they might just head out. They might not feel like this is important enough to occupy their time because There's a billion other things that they could be streaming right now. So you really need to focus on this, and this should be one of the points of preparation that you identify a week before you produce a game. I cannot underestimate how important this part of the Open is.
Mercer, like just about everyone else in college hoops, has had issues at times with the schedule. Both of these ball clubs come in seeking that first SoCon win of the year.
Yeah, the Bears started the season with wins against Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, but have lost 3 straight and desperately need to hold serve at home to stay in the SoCon hunt, even though we're just in mid-January. For Western Carolina, as you mentioned, haven't played in a couple of weeks. They also need to get a win on the road here this afternoon.
All of that builds up to what should be a simple conclusion to your broadcast Open, the tease. It comes right after the heroes. Maybe your color guy is finishing up talking about Tom Brady. And he says, well, Brady has faced a lot of good quarterbacks this year, but nobody as good as Peyton Manning. And then your play-by-play guy, who's in charge of the tease, he can write it. If you trust him as a producer, you can let him improv it. But this is something that you should go over together pregame until you have that chemistry as a producer play-by-play guy. So maybe your play-by-play guy would say, we'll find out if Brady has what it takes right after this commercial break. You're watching NFL football on ESPN. And then it takes you out, teases you out. So that can take you to break.
So it's Holmes on the ground, it's PV through the air, it's Mercer and ETSU, Southern Conference football on a Saturday. We're back after this.
Now, when you run this Open, there's a couple of ways you can do it. There's live and there's pre-recorded. I personally prefer pre-recorded Open. I've done this on the commentary side and the production side. And I know, no matter what side I'm on, somebody usually makes a mistake on the first take. I do think you get a higher quality product when you have an opportunity to do multiple takes and pre-record your Open. A lot of pros do it. A lot of people on mid to high level broadcasts do that. On the flip side, if you don't have the tech, if you don't have the budget, or it's just your preference to do it live, I get it. I love the adrenaline. I've done in the past year about 20 live Opens, and a decent number of them have been good. There's been mistakes that could have been avoided, but the thing with a live Open is there's nothing like it because you are in it. You can't mess up, and you are going at it in real time. So that's part of the benefit. It's not a tangible thing, but it's an emotion. And with the live Open, you just know that you've got to be sharp. You have to rehearse more beforehand. So when your crew gets there, you're saying, hey, we know how we're going to run the game, but let's run this Open a few times and make sure we've got the timing on our graphics correct and the packages look right, the locator, for example, or the hero shots. And make sure that everybody knows that it's go time and you have the red dot on, you are live. For example, now one thing I do notice that I want to make sure I make a note of, with young producers, one of the biggest failures I see is a communication problem. And I've had this before. I've been through it, of just not knowing how to communicate, or you make a mistake and you're like, well, if I had just told them that, we wouldn't have missed it. This all starts, if you're producing a game, prep needs to start for you a week before. You need to be reading game notes. You need to be looking at graphic ideas. If you have good commentators, they should be pitching you ideas for graphics or ideas for, even if you don't have the ability to put a graphic on screen, say, hey, can we get a solo shot of this person during a timeout so that the commentator can tell a story about them or highlight them? Little things like that. Those should be pitched well beforehand, at least 48 hours beforehand, and you should be building that out. Now, at least 24 hours before the game, you should have a rundown, Excel sheet, Word document, however you want to do it, I don't care. But 24 hours, or at least the morning of the game, it should be done and emailed to your commentators, should be printed to where they each have a paper copy on their desk. They can write on it, they can make it their own, they can do their scripts, you can do it together if you want on game day. And make sure that once they arrive, the first thing you do, hey, how are you? Your greeting, right after that. Okay, for the Open, here's what I've got planned today. Make sure that you're on the same page, run through it, show them everything, all the graphics, all the packages, all the timing. Practice it a couple of times together, and then you'll be on the same page in terms of communication. That's something that is just so important throughout your broadcast. And it's not as much for a lot of people of knowing how to communicate. It's just putting in the effort and doing it. It takes time, but it saves you problems. It makes you look sharper. And you do that on top of following these tips, you will stand out as a producer. People will like your product, and it will show that you're a little different and that you deserve to be on a higher level. So with that, thank you all for watching this. I have really enjoyed putting this together. Hopefully it helps, and feel free to contact me. Let me know what you think, and have a blessed rest of your day.